Hey everybody, I am John Hodgins. I'm with the Annie E. Casey Foundation, and I work in our strategic communications department, but help support our work on youth mental health. And I am really excited to welcome everybody today to our webinar on community solutions for youth mental health or community-based approaches. We have two fantastic guests today. I'm going to introduce both of them, but first up, we have Dr. Wanda Boone, who is the CEO and founder of Together for Resilient Youth, or TRI, in Durham, North Carolina. Founded in 1992, TRI is a coalition of coalitions working through a grassroots framework to prevent trauma and the challenges that occur when it occurs. I didn't write that very well. Sorry. Dr. Boone is an expert in the field of resilience, adverse childhood experiences, and trauma-informed living. And we are so excited to have her here. So I'm just going to hand this over to Dr. Boone.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here with you today because this is my life of love, my favorite topics that have to do with youth. And I'm really excited. The information that I'm sharing, I'll share some data from Durham, North Carolina, but please know that these are the same challenges that are faced throughout our nation. So, Dionisa, oh, she's giving, okay. So, welcome Together for Resilient Youth. And so, yes, we were founded way back then. That's when we started our work, but we started our 501c3 in 2003. So we've been around a long time. And we are so thrilled to serve communities on the grassroots level, on a local, and then national and international levels. And when I talk about coalitions, I'm sure you already know, but our coalition has several different sectors. We have LIFT, which are our young people ages 9 to 17. And then we have college age young people, young adults ages 18 to 24. A Good Neighbor Business Network, faith communities, law enforcement, community, health, schools, parents, and sadly, parents that have lost children due to overdose. And we use the public health model to address the underlying issues like adverse experiences that result in negative outcomes for young people and also adults. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of a middle school, high school, where our group participated, and we said, how many of you are stressed out? And all these hands went up, stressed out. They feel stressed out. And on the screen back there is a video and visual that we show about how stress affects every single part of one's body. And they were really interested in that. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about adverse childhood experiences first. And generally, no matter who I'm talking to, I mention adverse childhood experiences, and actually there are 4 adverse experiences because of the impact that trauma has, and you'll see that in the next couple of slides. But in my opinion, we need to shift the focus from individual responsibility to community solutions. And how well does that fit with what we're talking about today? Because what I believe and what I see in grassroots and in systems and in agencies is that if we don't assist every part of the community that we can, involving adults and parents and other community members, to be whole enough to present themselves as whole people in order to help young people, then there's going to be some difficulty. So we do talk about youth and work with youth a lot, but we also encourage this communication with parents and adults and community members to create a resilient community where all young people can thrive. Next, to reduce stigma around seeking help with parenting challenges or for substance use, depression, or suicidal thoughts, and to promote safe, stable, nurturing relationships and environments where children live, learn, and play. To think that a child is responsible for their challenges. Now, this is going to be kind of new, that they are totally responsible for their challenges is like holding fish responsible for living in a polluted stream. So the stream has issues. Fish can survive if a stream doesn't have issues. And it's the same thing for young people. The adolescent brain doesn't fully develop until someone is 25 years old. And so we can't expect young people to behave like adults. Next slide. And so these are the adverse experiences that I was mentioning. And think about children that have challenges. And we see through these 4 levels of ACEs that children, as well as adults, are subject to these adverse experiences: adverse climate, adverse childhood, adverse community, atrocious cultural experiences. So adverse climate experiences are things that happen, floods, COVID-19, because of how there was a complete overall challenge that we all faced. But it impacted Brown and Black individuals more than others. Adverse childhood experiences, I'll talk about those in the next slide, but adverse community experiences. And we all see adverse communities experiences. So it's not the people, it is the built community. And in that built community, we see poverty and violence, poor housing affordability, discrimination, lack of social capital, lack of social and economic mobility, and lack of opportunity. And so a person who lives in a vulnerable community can't just up and do things like we would want them to do. Let's say we want to talk about diabetes and eating healthy. Well, if you look around in the vulnerable community, there's nothing there. Poor access to banks, sidewalks, fresh produce, but you're supposed to eat healthy and do better. Atrocious cultural experiences. These are things like genocide, slavery, colonization, forced family separation, segregation, harmful social norms, and these literally impact the DNA of a person. Next slide. And these are the 10, and now there are 11 adverse childhood experiences. Under the category of abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, under neglect, physical or emotional, under household dysfunction, mental illness in the home, substance use in the home, an incarcerated relative, divorce or separation, parental violence. And then the 11th ACE, which was uncovered a couple of years ago, is racism. So think about added on to the adverse climate experiences, then adverse community experiences. And now we are talking about adverse childhood experiences. And so think about the impact on a family, the impact on a system where children play. And so those are the 10 and 11 ACEs. Now, 4 or more that's the key number, 4. So, and it doesn't matter which one, but if someone has 4 ACEs, then 4 or more, then that can mean that they have some of the outcomes that I'll show in the next slide. But if they have 6 or more, it could result in 20 years less life expectancy. And so we think about that, think about again the whole system, teach whoever the child comes in contact with. If that individual has adverse childhood experiences, then they're not going to be able to function at an optimal level where they can interact with a child with the love and care that they need. Next slide. And these are the possible outcomes. So this is why I talk about ACEs so passionately, because the things that we want to prevent, we find a foundation that we might have missed in adverse childhood experiences. Lack of physical activity, smoking, alcoholism, drug use, missed work, severe obesity, diabetes, depression, suicide attempts, STDs, heart disease, cancer, stroke, COPD, broken bones. So the question is not, what did you do? The question is, what happened to you? But moreover, beyond what happened to you, the question is, what are your strengths? Why are you resilient? So change the way we think about the question. And some people may think that when we talk about these things with people, that they get concerned, but really what happens is that they are relieved because they can finally name the thing. Why am I not able to walk around? Why can't I stop drinking? And it is amazing what happens when eyes are opened in terms of this concept, but we do not leave people there. We move on to how you can maneuver after ACEs. Next slide. And this has been researched, and it is true. Every child needs at least one adult who is irrationally crazy about him or her. I will admit that my ACE score is 10. And so realizing that one can live a life after ACEs or recover their childhood is something that is truly possible. Next slide. Okay, so when we talk about young people and mental health, some of the things we realize is that there's a problem with bullying. And bullying that's observed by others, and these are Durham statistics, but I won't guarantee, but I am pretty sure that these statistics are somewhat like what you're experiencing. So I just want us to watch this short video.
Everybody has hate and love in their heart, and they can pick which one. To make a bully, you usually pick hate. To make a good person, you pick love.
Hi, Camilla.
Hi, Daddy.
What do you know about bullying?
A bully teases. A bully physically hurts people and does other things that aren't really nice.
It could be emotional stuff, like hurting people's feelings.
I think it's mostly like just somebody making other people feel bad about themselves.
Do you know that I was bullied when I was a little girl? When I moved to my new town, I met a girl I thought was my friend, and she was nice to me at first. She came to school one day and said that she was having a birthday party and told the entire class that I was only invited because her mother was making her invite the new girl.
You know, I grew up with the name Kwaku Moody. It wasn't a name like Mike or Tim or Bill or whatever. So I used to get made fun of a lot, and it would make me feel really, really bad about my name. I used to want to change my name.
Can I tell you something? When I was your age, in first grade, I was a bully. How does that make you feel to hear that?
Well, I was going to expect you to say the opposite.
Yeah, I wasn't the nicest kid. I was angry. My dad had just really left my life. And so I unfortunately took it out on other people. It was a really important lesson for me to learn that I need to treat other people the way that I want to be treated.
And you're doing a very good job of doing that, so.
If you you could say something to a bully your age, what would you say?
It's not cool to make people feel sad just because you feel that way.
If you see a bully, you have to stand up to them and say, that was not nice.
But isn't that sometimes scary?
It might be, but you have to be brave. There's no other way around it, unless bullies are gonna take over.
Why do you think bullies act the way they do?
Their home lives aren't very supportive. Their parents, they just don't have the opportunity to show the attention and love that this kid needs.
Maybe they don't have any friends. They feel like they need to bully to be anything at all.
Do you think that a bully deserves a little bit of sympathy sometimes?
Definitely. They're not always mean because they just want to be. There usually is a situation behind that.
I'm very proud that both of you are not only able to recognize or be kind to someone who's feeling bullied, but I'm even more proud of you for recognizing that the bully deserves kindness too. I think that makes me, as a mother, I'm really proud of you.
Every single person on this earth is different. But at the end of the day, it's that uniqueness that makes us really special. So it's never a thing to be made fun of.
So what can we do to maybe help a bully find that love that you think is in everyone's heart?
You have to give them someone to love. Remember, you lost someone that you loved. That's partly how you became a bully.
Mm-hmm.
And then your teacher respected you, and that was kind of love. So I think everybody needs someone to love or something to love. I think that's what it goes back to.
You're making me cry because of how much I love you.
I love you too.
Okay, thank you. Next slide. So one of the things that we do with young children, with young people is something that we call whole hearts, broken hearts, and in elementary school. And so because it really does start before then. And you see the conversations that the parents are having with the child, that takes time. Okay, so resilience is what we need to do in order to recover our lives in case we have, well, you know, it's not only if we have faced 10 aces, it may be one that stops us. Anyway, resilience is a personal journey which focuses on a healthy lifestyle and includes 5 components: emotional fitness, physical fitness, spiritual fitness, family fitness, social fitness. Next slide. Okay. And so I'm not going to read all of this to you. Obviously, you'll have them in the package that you're being sent with the slides. And so under emotional, be patient with yourself. So I'm just pointing out a couple, but you can decide which one you want to work on first. Physical, schedule regular physical exams. There are other things there. Spiritual, have faith in a higher power. Take a break to meditate on what is important to you. Social, maintain fulfilling friendships. Be active in your community or favorite charity. And this is something anybody can do. Young people as well as people of any age. Family, be committed to family members. Engage everyone in affirming, healthy conversations. And what we're beginning to see is that all of this takes time. And so we have to pause, notice, and choose what's most important. Next slide. Okay, so mental health and depression. We see here that the statistics are that 1 in 3 middle schoolers and 2 in 5 high schoolers experience symptoms of depression. And Black or African-American high school students are over twice as likely to report symptoms. Next slide. This is a very shocking statistic that came out of our youth risk behavior survey this year. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for children, adolescents, and young adults ages 15 to 24 years old. And here on the left is the statistic for Durham middle school and high school students. Attempted suicide, 47.5% of Black or African American. High school attempted suicide, 41.0%. And this is something we haven't seen before. But thinking about COVID, thinking about built communities, thinking about atrocious cultural experiences, you see how the pressure is building and building and building. And for Black, African American, or Hispanic young people, there are certainly challenges that supersede those of white children. But for me, it's a problem for everybody. It's a crisis for Black African American young children, but we should pay attention to all children, because adopting the feeling, the belief that it's all of us will get us places. Next slide. The other surprising statistic is gang members and non-gang members. So kind of the belief is that gang members are responsible for homicides, and gang members are responsible for aggravated assaults. But according to the data, that's simply not true. More homicides are committed by non-gang members, aggravated assaults by non-gang members. And so this is why I say it's all of us. It takes all of us, and we need to create a plan for good mental health for all. And that way, we will pay attention to all. Next slide, please. Racial inequities. Black or African American students taught by non-Hispanic white teachers are more likely to receive worse behavior assessments. Toxic stress, racism at an early age. Since the killings of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, there was increased racism toward Black or African Americans. COVID-19 increased racism among Asians. 1 in 5 middle schoolers and 1 in 4 high schoolers felt that they were treated badly or unfairly because of their race or ethnicity, either sometimes, most of the time, or always. So we talk to young people over Zoom, and we ask them these questions. I asked a 12-year-old, have you, African-American, Black African-American young lady, I asked if she had ever experienced racism or being treated differently or badly because of her skin color. And at first she said no. And then when she thought about it for a little while, she said that during Black History Month, when we're all supposed to be celebrating Black history, there were 2 white young men who came into her classroom with other Black young people and started saying terrible things about Black people. How did it make you feel? It made me feel terrible. I said, but always remember, you belong in any and every room that you walk into. And so we have to affirm with young people what is best about them and not leave this in silence. Next slide. And of course, social determinants of health. I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but we understand that whether it's economic stability, neighborhood or physical environment, education, food, community safety, or social contacts, health care systems, that racism and discrimination does exist. So what do we do about that? Because this is about solutions as it is about talking about the issue, showing data about the issue, and pointing it out. So community health workers, we have found, are the key to solutions in all of these areas. Because remember, we have the built community and people can't just up and leave. And so if they can't get fresh produce, how do we get fresh produce to them? Well, we have convenience stores where you saw the businesses, the business logo in the logo of Try. We have partnered with 600 businesses in Durham, some that are convenience stores, who say not only will they provide information about prevention of all kinds of things, but they also said that they would carry fresh produce in their convenience store supplied by farmers, either at no cost or low cost. And so these are the kinds of solutions. And really, this is about partnership. It's about relationships. It's about asking how you can help. With the healthcare system, we have community health workers that remind people through text or through Facebook or whatever to say, are you going to the doctor? And many times people don't want to go because they're not treated as well as they should be treated. And so there are times that we have community health workers that actually walk to the clinic with the person and get permission to either sit in the room or after the visit is over to come in and talk a little bit. And so those are the kinds of things that we are doing. There's lots, but we don't have time to talk about all of them. Next slide, please. And remember, we need to surround the young people with support from adults and where communities are safe and welcoming for young people. And so we think about that. And this gentleman is saying, okay, I hear you, time out. So let's see what comes next. Next slide. So some of the things that young people have said, and we have 3 pages of information about what young people are saying. Building better relationships with our peers. This includes teachers. So again, thinking about this in a holistic way. So what do? We train young people peer to peer. Our youth coalition receives information from the CDC or some other reliable source, and then they make the message their own. So if it's about suicide, they may talk about reassuring words and affirmations that they can even say over the loudspeaker at school. But with that information, making it their own, then they share it not only with their peers in schools, they do that in communities, and it has a rippling effect. It is nice to have encouragement and not just teaching. So they're looking for relationships. And where are those relationships most evident? In schools. More opportunities for transparency and connection between teachers and students. So this is about well-being and connectiveness. This is what they want. And of course, they gave different messages about wellness and about mental health. For mental health, stressed out, what do we do? It's the same kinds of things that we're talking about in terms of a resilient lifestyle. They need to exercise. They need all the things that we talked about in that previous slide in order to be healthy and do well mentally and emotionally. Next slide. Okay, so being supported at school. Again, peer-to-peer is so important, but let's look at this short video, and I'm almost done with my section.
Hey, Mr. Q. Did you see that? Why would somebody do that?
Please go into the classroom, no talking, quietly.
Hey, Miss Merida, how you doing?
We need you inside.
How do you think that makes us feel? I forgot my number.
What's your name?
Jordan.
What's your last name?
Carter.
All right. Go ahead.
School is hard enough.
Come on in, sit down quietly at your desks, and begin writing.
This kind of stuff just makes it harder.
I said quietly, please. Who's talking? Is it you, Sophie? Don't let it be you.
Don't believe me?
Sophie.
Please just watch.
I'm not up here for me, I'm up here for you. Pay attention, okay? Now somebody answer me. Somebody needs to answer me really fast.
Every time we're ignored or yelled at or silenced, a teacher takes away what's possible.
No horseplay, no running, and especially no talking.
Moment by moment.
Mr. Garrity, your student's behavior yesterday in the lunchroom, it was terrible. Next time, silent lunch.
Did you hear that? Stay in line and catch a bubble. I'm not playing.
If this is education, we're in trouble.
Bye, Miss McGarrity.
Frederick Douglass said, once you learn to read, you'll be forever free. The way it is now, 2 of the 3 of us will never be able to really read. It doesn't have to be this way.
Hey, Jordan, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
Everyone we meet throughout our day can make a difference.
I've been waiting for you to arrive.
All the difference.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Great.
Hi, Jordan. Bye, Jason.
Good morning, Jordan.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Good.
Go ahead and put your number in.
Talk with us, not at us.
That's okay. I'll look it up for you. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Okay.
All right. Have a
Teach us what we need to know. That's how we get smarter.
Well, good morning, Sophie, Janicia, and Jordan.
And when you talk with us and teach us, give us bigger and bigger words.
Now what I'd like you to do, children, is turn around and converse with your neighbor and discuss where the mother might have gone.
Words that we can use to read and understand.
She is prey for eagles, so she hunts at night.
And that will take us places we can never reach without you.
Remember, we're entering the learning zone. Now, how can we show our respect to the children and teachers who are working?
We can walk quietly.
Yes. Okay, kids, so what I'd like you to do is continue writing your narrative, documenting your emotions if you were the baby owl and your mother abandoned you in the nest.
What can you do? Learn all that you can so that you can challenge us to be our best.
You would have stayed and assisted them in whatever they needed.
Share yourself with us and show us how to share ourselves with others. Give us courage. Give us compassion. Help us find our own voices so we can become who we are meant to be.
Why would you want to silence us?
Thank you. Woo. That gets to me every time. And of course, I've shown this hundreds of times. I know, I want to cry too. Okay, so now, so we talked in this particular video about schools and teachers and administrators and cafeteria workers and that relationship. But I want you to think about what happens in the home of every child, regardless of whether they are in vulnerable communities or in wealthy communities. How much time do we as parents and grandparents spend time with our children in such a way that we help assist them to grow up emotionally whole and healthy and on their way to success? Because it's all of us. That's why I'm saying it's every adult, every parent, every grandparent. We can say one thing that will change a child's life. Next slide. Okay, so just to talk about one of our programs, Living in Future Tense. It's virtual. It can be delivered over distance, miles, the country, the nation, internationally, which it is, but it's our youth program that focuses on the development of skills and abilities necessary to help Students grow in character, effectively communicate, and work with others. We believe this empowers youth to accomplish their goals and live a life consistent with their belief. That's the ages 9 to 17. Very simple. It is evidence-based, and the children love it. So we meet in person, which you can do if you're in your specific areas. We send the information out, and then you go for it in your own way, working through schools, and we should tell you how to do that too. And we have seen, we're working on the suicide issue now, but we have seen a significant decrease in substance use among our youth. I've been working on that for so many years and so proud to see it now. Next slide. Okay, and then we respond to urgent situations, so that there was a young man that was shot near the high school, and they wrote a play about it called State of Urgency. And so we continued the conversation and even continued through the summer to make sure that young people were able to process, to have conversation, to be held in a healthy space while they were, and they still are, going through the results of that tragedy emotionally. Next slide. And so we have a health ambassador leadership program for young people, as well as adults, individuals that are living in public housing, to become health ambassadors so that they can share information with each other. And we have some other programs on the left-hand side that I won't go over, but the subjects include adverse childhood experiences and self-care, opioids, overdose, and Narcan use, substance use and violence prevention. That includes vapes and anything else that's down the pike. The power of Ubuntu, youth, family, community, resilience, how we work together. And I believe the last slide is coming up. Next slide. No. So this just shows how the process services and strengthens youth to reduce all those kinds of things that you see. Next slide, which I think is the last one. Okay, yes, Ubuntu. So Ubuntu is about a story of an archaeologist that was in a town in Africa, and he was ready to go home. And so he wanted to give a gift to the children. So he had a big basket of fruit that he set down at a tree way over there. And he said to the children, the first one that gets to the basket of fruit can have the whole basket of fruit. And so he was so excited to see who was going to get there first, and the kids were ready to go. And so he said 1, 2, 3, and they jumped up and they held hands together and they ran to the basket and they sat down and they ate the fruit together. So the archaeologist asked, why would you do this? Run together to get to the basket of fruit? I said one person could have gotten the whole basket of fruit. And a little girl looked up at him and said, how could one of us be happy and the rest of us be sad? It takes a community. It takes whole adults, whole parents, whole individuals to circle around our children, be the best that we can be for them, and we will see that the best in youth arise. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Boone. That was exceptional. I've seen a lot of these presentations. I'm certainly going to hold on to the videos that you shared, but also the analogy about fish in the stream. It's really powerful. We're going to pivot quickly and get to our second guest. So thank you very much. Our next guest is Kristie Stutler. She's the Vice President of Policy and Influence at Urban Strategies, Inc. Urban Strategies is a national nonprofit with more than 40 years of community planning and development experience. She's worked with system-involved youth for nearly 20 years, and for 3 years served as the lead on juvenile justice reform for the Kentucky Department of Juvenile Justice. She also is an alumna of the Annie E. Casey Foundation's Children and Family Fellowship. Welcome, Kristie.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to be here and my honor to be able to present with Dr. Boone, who I respect and just value and appreciate as a person and practitioner. So I want to, sorry, let me get this going here to make sure that I'm sharing. Okay, I think we're good. So as John said, Urban Strategies is a national nonprofit. We work in communities across the country, typically communities that are going through some form of revitalization. We are there to support families to ensure that when communities are going through revitalization, the families that we work with do not get displaced. And we partner with families with our mission to be that all children and families will be stable and thriving. And just to give you an idea of where we work in 25 major cities across the country. We are, the racial demographics of the families we work with are here. So we primarily work in communities going through major transformations, such as through choice neighborhood, through housing and urban development. And we work with about 100,000 individuals, 30,000 families. We're working across 6 pillars that are listed here at the top, and we take 3 distinct approaches. So while Dr. Boone talked a lot about connection, which is the undergirding of all of our work as well. She talked about work at the individual and community level. We also work at system levels. So there's 3 ways in which we go about working in community, partnering with families. And the first is programmatic support. That's about 80% of the staff who work for USI. We provide intense family support, and it's full family support. So it starts with, with parents. We work with everybody in the home, from children all the way to grandparents and older. And our programmatic support is really based on the model that we will meet families where they are, and that is both literally and figuratively. So wherever they are, that's where we are doing our work. We also operate as a CDFI, which is a community development financial institution, and we do lending that is focused on increasing the amount of capital that's available for Black and Brown owned businesses, because we recognize in communities where we work that there are lots and lots of people doing very transformational work. And typically what we see is that very often that Black owned businesses, Brown owned businesses, people don't have access to the same kind of resourcing that white businesses have in community. And as a result, we are seeking to disrupt that structural difference that oftentimes locks people who are doing transformational services out of being able to expand the work that they're doing. And then our policy and influence department, which is where I work. And that is focused primarily on system and policy change, because we understand that we have to be working. Healing involves creating a disruption to those system structures that lock in some individuals out of opportunity in our country. So just a couple of things from the World Health Organization. If you look at youth mental health, depression, anxiety, and behavioral disorders are kind of the leading causes of illness and disability among adolescents. And suicide is the 4th leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. So a little bit of a different statistic than what Dr. Boone presented from NAMI. but alarming. Whether it's second, whether it's fourth, it's an alarming statistic. And I want to share a video now from Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, who's a pediatrician and surgeon who served as the Surgeon General of California from 2019 to 2022. And she really specialized in her work around toxic stress and how that contributed to health outcomes. So again, going back to the root cause of a lot of the mental health issues that we're seeing with youth being connected to adverse childhood experiences, but with a little bit of a different, she's talking about this with a little bit of a different spin, because this is from the perspective of understanding how it changes, how exposure to adversity can change our physiology.
So many hands raised when we asked that question, that many of us have experienced some form of childhood trauma. What are some of the effects that this trauma has on us, even as adults?
Well, I think that some of the effects that we perhaps recognize the most is the impact that it has on our mental and emotional well-being, our ability to connect and develop healthy relationships. But when we experience trauma, especially in childhood, it literally gets under our skin and changes our biology. Because that moment when you as a child were sitting there knowing that you had told the truth and dealing with your mom as she was harming you, right? Like, we know as children that the role of our parents is supposed to be to protect us. And what happens in that moment, that fear, that terror, that trauma releases all kinds of stress hormones in our body, what we call the fight or flight response, right? But if that happens too often, if it happens unpredictably, and most importantly, if you don't have that safe and stable and nurturing adult to help to calm that down, what you can get is prolonged activation of the stress response. And that can lead to long-term changes in the way our brains develop, the way our hormones regulate, even the way our immune system functions, and even down to the way our DNA is read and transcribed. And that is what can lead to not only increased risk of mental health challenges like anxiety, depression, but also a lot of things that people don't recognize. Heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, even Alzheimer's, right? And so now we recognize that childhood adversity is a public health crisis.
That's important.
So in thinking about the physiological, so what Dr. Burke-Harris lifts up is that there are physiological changes that occur, changes that occur to our DNA. And when you think about, children experiencing adversity over the course of the time while their brains are developing, part of what can occur as a result of that is it impacts the way in which a child's developing brain is focused and actually starts to be wired. And so in typical development, you see up here at the top, cognition and survival is a very small piece of that. Exposure to ongoing developmental trauma can lead to that actually being flipped, where the survival becomes the key component and the key focus. And part of why that is really important to lift up when we're talking about approaches to youth, to supporting young people in kind of holistically healing, is that when we're working with young people, we have to understand that the changes that are occurring, the experiences are happening within our bodies, oftentimes separated from what we're thinking, right? So if you leave here today and you walk outside and you see a tiger on your front step, you don't have to stop and think, oh, there's a tiger. I'm in grave danger. I need to respond to this, right? Our bodies just respond. And the impulses and the things that happen within our body, that's called a bottom-up response, right? Our body responds to the threat. We're wired to be able to do that. And we engage in fight or flight or freeze to get us out of the situation. So these are adaptive responses that are designed for us to be able to get out of those threatening kind of situations. And so these things are happening in the body oftentimes without this cognitive component. And so when we think about opening opportunities for people to heal, how we might engage differently when we think about engaging with the physical sensations and what's going on in the body and starting there, as opposed to potentially starting with what's going on in the mind and working down. And actually both of those are really effective and impactful. But it's a very different kind of way of thinking about how we work with people who have experienced challenges around mental health and mental wellness, because we often separate, as Dr. Boone said, these are all connected, right? Our mental health, our physical well-being, but with the medical model, we often separate those, right? Like our mind and our mental wellness is separate from our physical wellness. But I don't know if you all are familiar with Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, who is a leading expert around trauma, and he wrote the book, The Body Keeps the Score. And he really, he's had many years of working with people who've experienced ongoing adversity, and he lifted up that that lives in our bodies, and we need to create opportunities to help people become aware of the sensations that are happening inside their bodies, and work with that. And that self-awareness is one of the first steps in being able to help people move past that. And so really similar to what Dr. Boone said, there's a need for a multifaceted approach to healing, which includes the incorporation and connection to all of these modalities: medical, physiological, psychosocial, behavioral, and spiritual interventions. And so when we are working with families and communities, so we hire very similar to TRI. We hire staff who are from communities where we work, who live there, who, that is where they work. And they work, as I said, with the whole family. And at the center of our work with families and young people is this critical understanding that everything that we do needs to be rooted in opportunities for safety, mastery, connection, and joy. And these are truly the way in which we work, that we believe is trauma responsive. So safety being, obviously, people have to be in a place where they feel safe in order to be able to address any of the challenges that they might be facing. Mastery meaning people need opportunities to be able to excel at something, whatever that is, whatever's important to them. They need to be connected to those opportunities for that to happen. And the biggest kind of disservice that trauma does to us is it creates this sense of disconnection. And so the connection to each other, connection to their bodies, connection to community as a whole, connection to a purpose, all of these are critical. And then the joy piece of this, which often gets left out, when we're in survival all the time, when we're in this place of survival and we don't experience joy, the potential for burnout, potential for shutdown, all of those things are there. So that connection to joy is really critical as well. And so we stress connection to holistic healing approaches, not just connecting our young people, our families to therapy, which might be a piece and a tool for them to be able to work through whatever they're experiencing, but it's a tool, not the tool. So also other opportunities that really connect them to their bodies, create opportunities for physical movement, connect them to the greater community. And we have numerous collaborative partners that we work with who really take this holistic healing approach. Maybe it's through, we have one program that we work with in a community where a piece of the work that they do spoken word. They have a recording studio that they work with youth to be able to work within that space. They do yoga and mindfulness, and they engage with the whole family. So just opportunities in a wide range of activities to really connect people to a very well-rounded approach to addressing, to being connected really as community. The other piece of this that's hugely critical is that whatever we're doing, that cultural competence is a piece of that, right? So that we are very clear that the work that we're doing, the services that are being offered, the whatever the modality is, that it is being offered with the considerations for the culture of the people that you're trying to serve, and not necessarily from the practitioner or where the comfort level of the practitioner. And then building protective factors. Protective factors are like umbrellas. They are the things that help mitigate against the adversity being internalized, which is really where a lot of the issues can come to light. We also approach this at a systemic level because at the heart of our work, we really believe that our policy and system change work is a critical component to healing at a collective level, because people's ability to heal or not is directly impacted by repeated exposure to ongoing stress. That's often created by inequitable system structures that perpetuate harm. So continuing to be impacted by racism on an ongoing basis continues to add layers of harm on top of what people have experienced at an individual and collective level. And so just a couple of things that I want to leave you all with as you're thinking about your work with young people. I worked in systems for a long time that served children, and I helped lead the juvenile justice reform in Kentucky. And there's national data that really reflects that there are racial differences in who gets what youth who are experiencing challenges, who gets connected to resources and treatment, and who gets connected to systems that punish. And so we really need to ask ourselves how we're contributing to that, or how we're disrupting that, how we're challenging that. How are we attending to the generational nature of trauma responses that might be impacting young people? Because it's not just a young person's experience, but it's their family's experience, it's their grandparents' experience. All of those often get compounded. What the evidence-based practice that we're trying to use, who's it been used with and who has benefited from it. The component of our work in juvenile justice was the implementation of evidence-based practices, and there were lots of them that said they had limited efficacy with minority populations. And so when we're utilizing an evidence-based practice, who's benefited from that in the past? And how can we find evidence-based practices that are going to benefit the populations that we're trying to serve? And then the bottom piece of this that I think is just like the undergirding of it all is our response contributing to more connection or to disconnection, whether that's a disconnection from family, a disconnection from self, or a connection to self and a connection to community, because lots of systemic involvement for kids, whether that's with the child welfare system or with the juvenile justice system, often creates and exacerbates disconnection that youth experience. And so how can we take approaches that contribute to connection that will create that place for that safe place for young people to heal? And then just a couple of maybe nothing. Just want to leave you with, and the PowerPoint will be shared, but just a few suggested reading resources here that is a wide range of reading related to this. So Dr. Marielle Bouquet just released her book, Break the Cycle, and it's a guide to healing intergenerational trauma. It is an amazing read about the impacts of intergenerational trauma. Again, back to Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps Score. Stanley Rosenberg's Accessing the Healing Power of the Vagus Nerve really talks about polyvagal theory and how we can work with physiology to calm ourselves in stressful situations. And then Anodia Judith, Eastern Body, Western Mind, the Psychology and the Chakra System as a Path to the Self, is a really interesting reading that takes the medical model and kind of compares and contrasts, and it even incorporates that with Eastern medicine. So all of these as what I would suggest as potential follow-up reading opportunities to really help to think about how we can provide a holistic place for young people to stay connected. And with that, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you to the Casey Foundation for having me. Thank you to Dr. Boone for sharing the space with me. It was lovely to see you. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day.